Hi Archers, it's me Earl Yap of Benel Archery, and today we are going to discuss how to select a recurve bow for you. Now, of course, there's a lot of people asking us like, paano ba or how do you select a bow if you're a beginner? Or what is an excellent bow for a beginner? What are the first few things you want to consider? Of course, the budget, your plan with the sport, like if you have a short-term goal or a long-term goal that you want to achieve by buying a bow. Next would be the type of materials that your bow will be made of. And lastly, the type of limb that you want to get. Okay, so first, with regards to budget, there are a lot of bows there in the market that wouldn't really hurt your wallet so much. Like for example, in our shop, we have the Sanlida Tangzong set, which is priced at 6,500. Of course, if you're looking to buy probably like the bare essentials, it could be cheaper. Like if you're just going to buy the bow with some arrows and maybe a finger tab, it will drop down the cost quite significantly. Now the thing about risers is that they're all not the same. Just because there's a 7,000 or 6,000 peso ILF riser out there in the market, it does not mean that it can compete against a 15,000 peso ILF riser. Even more, it cannot compete against a more high-end riser. Now, why is that so? Simply because there are different ways of producing these risers. Like for example, the beginner ILF risers, such as the WNS Explorers, use a die-cast process, meaning there is a mold that they produce, they pour the aluminum into the mold, and then once they open the mold, you have a finished product. Next would be the forge process, wherein the aluminum material is already shaped as a riser or similar to a riser, after which they CNC cut out the shape that they want and drill in all the holes that you need to attach all your accessories. And lastly would be the CNC aluminum block riser. Now this is commonly seen with a lot of the high-end risers in the market, wherein you have a solid rectangular or whatever shape. Normally it's a rectangular block, and then they will put that block into a machine and carve out every single detail, including the shape of the riser. There's also one last process wherein only a few manufacturers produce, which is the carbon riser. Now, the carbon risers tend to be a lot pricier than most of the aluminum risers, but one brand which we carry, Win & Win or Wiawis, makes an excellent job in keeping the price point very affordable, but getting a really quality riser that performs excellent and at the same time is able to compete with the high-end aluminum risers and even win tournaments such as the Olympics, World Championships, World Cups, everything. Okay? The next thing you want to do is you want to know what type of limbs you are getting. Okay, so with regards to limbs, there are sizes. It's like buying a shoe. Now, the limbs would work in conjunction with your riser. So for someone like me who's 5'10", I would highly recommend that you use something that's 25 inches. When you say 25 inches, that is the riser length that you are going to use. Now, there are also risers that are 23 inches. These would be more ideal for shorter archers or archers with shorter draw lengths. And these risers would typically go with options for limbs that are short, medium, or long. Or with other manufacturers, 66 inches, 68 inches, and 70 inches. Now, one tip I have that I can share with you guys that I learned from the past, like attending seminars or talking to people, is that whatever your draw length is, add 40. 40 doesn't really mean anything. There's no equivalent to it, but it's just a guide. Add the number 40 to your draw length, and you will roughly get what limb length you should be using. Like for example, I am a 28.5 draw length archer on a recurve bow. If I add 40, it will be at 68, 68.5. At the same time, if you are an archer with a 24-inch draw length, okay, if you add 40, you'll be at 64. If you have a 26-inch draw length, if you add 40, you'll be at 66. So this makes it easier for you to identify what type of limbs you need. Now, a lot of coaches out there would typically let an archer use a 68 limb regardless of their draw length, just because it's the middle size. It's an easier way of doing it, but the problem is, if you're a 24-inch draw length archer shooting a 68, you have a 4-inch deficit with regards to the power stroke. At the same time, if you are a 30-inch draw length archer shooting a 68, you will have that 2-inch deficit, which means that you're pulling that limb 2 inches more than what it is intended for. When you are shooting at 24 inches, shooting a 68, of course, you're not able to maximize the limb. You're not able to maximize the limb power, its performance, or the design that it is intended for that specific draw length range for a 68. Now, when you are pulling a 68 on a 30-inch draw length archer, yes, you are getting more power, but you're also getting a lot of inefficiencies with regards to the power stroke. You're probably pulling 2 pounds, 4 pounds more, 2 to 4 pounds more depending on the limb, or depending on how it stacks. And at the same time, you are losing efficiency. The limb is just throwing those arrows onto the target with too much power. It's not transferring the power nicely and smoothly to the arrow. Now, knowing all of those things, we went from budget to type of risers to limbs. Your next problem would be the accessories. Now, do you scrimp on accessories, or do you go mid-level accessories, or do you go all high-end? Now, one thing I did notice with a lot of archers is that they tend to go too low-end on accessories. Now, there are a few things that you can actually afford to do that, but there are some that you may want to increase your budget a bit more when it comes to buying these accessories. Now, you can get away with buying low-cost arrow rest, low-cost finger tabs, low-cost plungers, simply because these things you will have to change eventually, like in the next year or two. But when it comes to your sight, you want to invest on a nice sight. Why? Because the lower cost sights, yes, they do give you the geometry, the micro adjust, those features that you see on the high-end sights, but they're not really designed to withstand long-term use. So a lot of the times you'd see that the plastic threads or plastic parts tend to come loose very easily. A lot of the times they would end up having a bit of tolerance issues, wherein the aperture holder would have a lot of play. Now, with a more expensive sight or a better quality sight, you don't get that. With stabilizers, it's also the same thing. Whether it's recurve or compound, when you go too low in your budget, you're actually getting something with lesser quality materials. For example, if you go really low in the budget, the carbon rod, they will all be carbon nowadays. The carbon rod would tend to flex more. Now, this would be probably ideal if you're a beginner archer and you don't put a lot of weight on your stabilizers. But the moment you progress and want to add a lot of weight on the center rod or the side rods, your rods will flex a lot more. That flex would tend to amplify the forces that you get from shooting a shot. Okay, now with more expensive stabilizers, the rod tends to be a lot stiffer, especially if you're the type that wants to add a lot of weight. Now, with regards to the V-bar, of course, V-bars are usually made of solid aluminum. You can get away with probably getting a low-cost V-bar just because these things don't flex as much, or they won't even flex at all. So you could do a combination. I know that a lot of stabilizers out there are soleless sets, but if they're not, you could probably scrimp on the V-bar. Or if you want to go all out, just get a adjustable V-bar or a carbon V-bar that Win or We Always produces for you advanced archers out there. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I know it's a topic that a lot of you archers always ask, so that's why I'm making a video. And in the near future, we'll most likely make other videos which pertain to the individual aspects of each. Like for example, we'll make a video on a riser, on how to select your own riser, or how to select your own stabilizer, how to select your own plunger, right? So basically, we're trying to do something at that level just to guide you guys, or just to educate you guys on how you should be buying your equipment if you really want to get started into doing archery as a hobby, as a sport, or as a competitor that will be competing at a high level one day or whatnot. So I hope you learned something, and see you in our next video. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.